The helicopter's blades carved through the thin mountain air at 8,000 feet, a mechanical dragonfly suspended above the jagged peaks of the Cascade Range. Inside the cramped cargo bay, Staff Sergeant Maya Reeves sat with her hands zip-tied behind her back, watching three men argue over a map spread across their laps. She'd been tracking this cell for 6 months. The Wolves, they called themselves, domestic terrorists who'd stolen classified military equipment from a storage facility in Oregon. Maya had gotten close, maybe too close. She'd infiltrated their compound posing as a disillusioned veteran, and for 3 weeks she'd played the role perfectly. Until yesterday, when someone had recognized her from a training exercise at Fort Benning. "She's awake," the pilot called back, noticing Maya's eyes were open. The leader, a thick-necked man named Briggs who wore his paranoia like a second skin, turned to look at her. His face was all hard angles and suspicious eyes. "Doesn't matter. She'll be paced in about 5 minutes. Maya kept her expression neutral, though her mind was racing through possibilities. The helicopter was a civilian Bell 407, stolen 2 days ago from a private touring company. No armor, no military modifications. The side door was currently latched but not locked. She'd noticed that detail immediately. "Old habits. You really thought you could infiltrate us?" Briggs leaned forward, his breath sharp with coffee and cigarettes. "Army Ranger. Special Operations. We looked you up after we figured out who you were." Impressive resume. "Too bad you'll never get to pad it any further." "You're making a mistake," Maya said calmly. It wasn't a plea, just a statement of fact. "I'm not here alone." Briggs laughed, a harsh bark that the others echoed. "Yeah. Where's your backup, Ranger? You've been with us for 3 weeks. If someone was coming, they'd be here by now." He wasn't entirely wrong. The operation had been deep cover, minimal support. Her handler knew her location, but extraction wasn't scheduled for another 48 hours. In the world of special operations, 48 hours might as well be an eternity. "Open the door, Marcus," Briggs ordered the youngest of the three, a jittery kid who couldn't have been more than 22. Marcus hesitated, his hands trembling as they reached for the latch. "Are we really doing this?" "She's seen everything. She knows about the depot, the shipment, all of it. We dump her here and she's just another hiker who got too ambitious." Briggs pulled a knife from his belt and moved behind Maya, cutting the zip ties on her ankles but leaving her hands bound. "Consider it a professional courtesy. You get to die doing what Rangers do, taking the hard way down." The door slid open and the wind roared into the cabin like a living thing. Maya's hair whipped across her face as she looked out at the dizzying drop. Below, a dense canopy of Douglas firs stretched endlessly, broken occasionally by granite outcroppings and the silver threads of mountain streams. No clearings. No soft landings. Just trees and rocks and the promise of impact. They didn't know. That was the thing that would haunt them later, if they lived long enough for later to matter. They'd read her file, seen the accolades, the combat deployments, the commendations. But they'd missed the detail that mattered most. Before Ranger School, before Special Operations, Maya Reeves had been Ranger Maya Reeves of the National Park Service. 5 years at Yosemite, specializing in wilderness rescue and high-angle technical operations. She'd rappelled into canyons to extract injured climbers, performed swiftwater rescues in flooding rivers, and once spent 36 hours guiding a lost family out of the backcountry during a blizzard. She knew mountains. She knew forests. And most importantly, she knew how to fall. "Any last words, Sergeant?" Briggs asked, his hand on her shoulder ready to push. Maya looked back at him and smiled, a genuine, knowing smile that made him hesitate for just a moment. "Yeah. See you soon." Then she jumped. The shock on their faces was worth it, that split second of confusion before gravity took her. She didn't wait to be pushed, didn't give them the satisfaction. Rangers lead the way after all. The fall was chaos. Wind screamed past her ears as the helicopter shrank above her, becoming a black dot against the pale sky. She fought against every instinct to panic, to tense up, to flail. Instead, she went through the checklist she'd memorized years ago during her first high-fall training course. Position. She tucked her chin, brought her legs together, and angled her body toward the densest section of canopy she could see. Not the gaps, never the gaps. The gaps meant rocks or hard ground. She needed branches, needed layers of wood and needles to absorb impact. Breathing. Fast, controlled breaths, oxygenating her blood, keeping her brain sharp. 3 seconds had passed. Maybe 4. Terminal velocity for a human body. 120 miles per hour. But she wouldn't reach that. Not enough time. Not enough distance. 6 seconds. The canopy rushed up to meet her. This was the critical moment. The one she'd practiced mentally 1,000 times but never actually attempted outside of controlled training environments. Her bound hands were a problem, but not an insurmountable one. She twisted her body at the last possible moment, spreading herself into an X shape to maximize surface area and drag. The first branch she hit was a spruce limb as thick as her thigh. It caught her shoulder, spinning her sideways, slowing her momentum by perhaps 10 miles per hour. The pain was immediate and electric, but she used the spin to control her descent. Another branch, this one across her thighs. Snap. The sound of breaking wood was sharp even over the roar of wind. She was falling through a ladder of gradually weakening branches now, each one stealing a bit more velocity, each impact a brutal negotiation with physics. 8 seconds. Her ribs cracked against a particularly solid limb. She felt the precise moment they gave way, felt the sharp breath forced from her lungs. But she was slowing. Still falling, still in danger, but slowing. 10 seconds. The lower canopy was denser, the branches smaller but more numerous. They whipped against her face, her arms, her back. She curled into herself as much as possible with her hands still bound, protecting her head and neck. 12 seconds. Impact with the forest floor, not a crash but a tumbling, rolling collision through a bed of pine needles and decomposing leaves. She hit hard enough to knock the remaining air from her lungs, rolled twice, and came to rest against the base of a massive cedar tree. For a long moment, Maya lay still, conducting an internal inventory. Breathing, difficult but possible. The ribs were definitely broken, at least 2, possibly 3. Left shoulder, dislocated. Various lacerations on her face, arms and legs. Right ankle, sprained or possibly fractured. But her spine felt intact. Her neck was intact. Her skull was intact. She was alive. Above, she could hear the helicopter circling, the sound of its rotors fading and growing as Briggs searched for her body. They'd be looking for a corpse, not a survivor. Good. Let them look. Maya rolled onto her side, ignoring the scream of protest from her ribs, and used her teeth to work at the zip tie binding her wrists. The plastic was industrial grade, but it had been loosened during the fall. After 2 minutes of awkward gnawing and pulling, her hands came free. The helicopter was moving away now, the sound diminishing into the distance. They'd given up quickly. Probably assumed she'd been obliterated on impact, her body scattered across the forest floor in pieces they'd never find. They'd be wrong about that too. Maya allowed herself 30 seconds to sit with the pain, to acknowledge what her body had been through. Then she stood, using the cedar tree for support, and took stock of her situation. No phone, they'd taken it. No GPS. No emergency beacon. But she had training and she had knowledge, and most importantly, she had something her captors didn't. She knew exactly where she was. The sun was at 2 o'clock, which meant she was facing northeast. The helicopter had been flying a bearing of roughly 270 degrees when they'd thrown her out, and they'd been in the air for about 40 minutes before that. Quick mental math, accounting for airspeed and direction, put her approximately 23 miles west-northwest of the compound. There was a fire road about 6 miles due east. She'd studied the topographical maps obsessively before going undercover. If she could make it there by morning, she could flag down a ranger patrol or a logging truck. 6 miles with broken ribs, a dislocated shoulder and a bad ankle. In hostile territory with terrorists who now believed they'd committed murder. Most people would wait for rescue. Most people would try to make themselves comfortable and hope someone found them. But Maya Reeves wasn't most people. She was a ranger. Both kinds, and rangers don't wait to be rescued. She fashioned a makeshift sling from her torn jacket, gritted her teeth and started walking east, leaving the perfect impression of a survivor in her wake. Behind her, the forest swallowed her footprints. Ahead, somewhere beyond the mountains, Briggs and his wolves were celebrating their escape. They'd learned soon enough, you can throw a ranger from a helicopter. But you can't make one stop coming. The hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun.